I'm in the downstairs workshop of my house. One of my workshops, not the garage. Today, we're going to look at some 3D printing stuff because people keep asking me, it's like, okay, I've heard you do 3D printing, blah, blah, blah. What is that? So we're going to talk about 3D printing. Okay, so 3D printing is a marketing word. Really, it means that you can create some little parts of stuff at home. Okay, and I'll just give you an example. So here is this is a piece of plastic, and it's some part that someone designed, and we won't talk about what it does, but it's a piece of plastic. I made this and printed it on a machine, and we say print, that just means that this machine will create this part using some plastic, just like you send a job to a printer. Like if you typed up some document and you said print, you kind of do the same thing. So that's why they say 3D printing, because it sounds really easy. But it's basically just a process whereby a small machine can generate parts. And this is a small part, relatively small part. But we'll get into it. I'll show you some much larger pieces as well. Way back, this is like 2010 or 2011, I actually wanted to make these small plastic connectors to stick inside straws so that my daughter could construct some geodesic domes and other shapes. And I was like, well, where are these connectors? They didn't exist, right? So it's like, well, how am I going to get those connectors? And at that time, I heard about this 3D printing thing that was just getting started right then. So I thought, oh, maybe I can design that and 3D print one, right? And then I can make a whole bunch of them. Because if you go to some manufacturer and say, oh, I need this plastic part, you know, it's like, well, it's $5,000 for tooling, and you got to create the injection molded thing, and $10,000 minimum run, and it's like, I don't want all that. What can I do on my own? Just so happened that 3D printers were becoming something that was approachable by consumers at that time. So I got into it, of course, because I'm a tinkerer, so I just got into it. And I designed the part that I wanted, and I printed it out, and I was like, well, wait a minute. Let's do a lot more. And that was just kind of the opening of the floodgates on this thing. So that was the start. About 2010, 2011, I just decided I want to make a small part for my daughter. And then it just blossomed into a, wow, this is actually an industry. So 3D printing has existed for a long time, commercially. And the machines cost tens of thousands of dollars, and their patents and all this. Why it changed in 2010 or 11 was because certain patents ran out. So suddenly, all these other companies could create 3D printers. And there's a particular kind which is called FDM, which is just, think of a hot glue gun on a robot arm to process, okay? The patents on that ran out around that time. So a whole community, it was called RepRap, a whole community sprung up because those patents ran out. And that was the birth of the consumer grade level of things. So where the machines used to cost tens of thousands of dollars, I think the first one we put together was maybe $1,500, $1,500. Okay. So that's a huge drop, right? So now it's approachable by everyone. Now the machines cost, and we'll talk about this later, $300, $400. Let me tell you about the printers that I have right now. Right behind me, this one is called a Prusa MK. There's a company called Prusa 3D, and they manufacture and have been manufacturing these printers for a very long time, the consumer grade printers. So this is one of them, and it has this print bed. This is where the prints actually print. This thing is what, 10 inches by 10 inches roughly. So it can print something that big by yay tall, so 10 by 10 by 10, let's say. So this is a typical printer. Over here is what we call the hot end. It's got this is where the hot plastic comes out. It's running off of a spool up here. And this goes back and forth and up and down. And the way it does it is layer by layer, it builds up a piece. So this piece might have started in here like this, And it does it layer by layer by layer, just building up slowly until the piece is done. So that's one printer. Its little brother is over here to the right, and this bed is much smaller. Oftentimes I'll print something on the big guy while I'm also printing something on the small one. So whereas I might be printing something big like this, at the same time, I might be printing smaller parts like this, and they might be a part of a bigger assembly. So I'll run small things on the little one, I'll run the big things on the big one, or I might have a different color filament or a different kind of plastic over here. Like this one is called PETG. This is the same stuff that is used for milk cartons, plastic milk cartons. And then over on the little one, I have this other kind of plastic called PLA, which is actually a corn derivative. It's a bioplastic, if you will. So, and they have different strength qualities and whatnot. So I might have different colors, different kinds of plastics running on each one of the printers. I want to put a label. Well, where am I going to put the label? So I print these things up, and then I can stick one of those typical office labels on here. I can just put it right there and say, okay, this is Pet G. You know, I'll put this one here and say, okay, this one is PLA, right? So I can print things for the office, or I decided, hold on, let me get one thing. You know, doing all this printing can be some thirsty work. But I need a place for my water bottle. So I need a water bottle holder, and then I can, you know, put my water bottle in there. So there's all sorts of things like that. Or carrying those plastic bags from the grocery store. Oh, they cut my fingers. So I need a little plastic bag holder. Put your plastic bags on here, and you're now holding this nice soft thing instead of the rough plastic bags, which you shouldn't have anyway. Yeah, so these things. So a lot of these things are, or again, with this rack, I need a little hook just so I could put my wires or headphones or something. So I just snap these on, and then I can hang stuff. All of these things that I've shown you so far are designs that are freely available on a couple of websites. So I download them, and I say, I do a process called slicing it, and then I say print. That's it. A couple hours later, out comes the thing, right? Design is a whole other thing. If I needed a part, and I'll get into this later, that is specific, has a specific design, I had to spend time designing it. For example, now just to go even further, holy cow, this is this is a robot arm, or the makings of a robot arm. You can see this is the base part of it. This turns on a turret, and then this is like the first elbow. And here's some electronic motors integrated, and you have integrated ball bearings, and you know, there's all the wiring and all that sort of stuff. So you can do stuff like this as well. It takes time because these big giant parts are, you know, that's a lot of plastic. So, but this is the makings of a robot arm somebody designed, and we can incorporate electronics and mechanical pieces and all sorts of other stuff. So, you know, it depends on what you're trying to do, whether it's just, I want little enhancements for the home, or I'm actually trying to create a robot arm because I want to teach my kid robotics. Let's build a robot, right? So we do stuff like that. So anything you can, now you're not going to design something gigantic, but a lot of times 3D printing is used for doing prototyping. A reel of plastic like this, they typically come in 1 kilogram of plastic per reel. That's kind of a standard. And a kilogram of plastic, if it's standard PLA, could be as cheap as, let's say $16, or as much as 45, depending on, if it's a nylon infused with carbon fiber filaments or something like that. It could be $100. But realistically, most of the plastic you're going to buy for 1 kg is $20, right? And these days you can get it Amazon anywhere. I mean, it used to be like, oh, there's only a few vendors that sell it and you're not sure what you're getting and the quality wasn't good and all that. Nowadays, $16, any vendor on Amazon is fine. Now, how much plastic is used in a part? Let's go. Let's look at this thing. Um, this is probably, I don't know, just a few grams of plastic. So this part, in terms of plastic cost, was probably no more than 20 cents of plastic. So you consider your electricity costs because you're running, again, essentially a hot glue gun for as long as it takes to print this thing. So whatever your electricity cost is probably, I don't know if it's a higher, depends on how much you pay for electricity. But the plastic cost is pretty negligible when a whole reel like that, to print this robot arm, this orange section, that's probably not quite one roll. So less than $20 for this section, and for all the pieces that I printed for this robot, let's just call it $80. Let's imagine we used 4 reels to print every part, not just the parts here, but there's other parts. All the parts. I mean, I have a whole bin of parts up here that were for this robot, and the plastic part is only $80. The electronics is $250. So your plastic is negligible. Really what you're paying for is time, because it takes a long time. So that's where but that's good, because now you're shifting, you're saying, well, the manufacturing part isn't the barrier, it's the design part. It's like, well, that's great, because that's just about my head, right? It's not about my ability to produce something. It's just the ability for me to think of something. So, again, with this one, it has to do with you can print in different qualities. Just like with your printer at home, your laser printer or whatever, you can print black and white or you can print in color, right? So printing in color actually doesn't take much longer, but it uses more ink and stuff like that, and the quality's better. So there's more that goes into it. Same with this. You can print with less detail and it'll take less time. You can choose how much, like this is mostly hollow. You can choose how much plastic is inside the part, and that will take more time. So if you needed a super strong part, you might put more plastic inside of it. That's called infill. This one I didn't, because it's like, it only needs to be strong enough to hold plastic bags. It doesn't have to be strong enough to hold a car. So, but all told, this can take anywhere from 45 minutes to an hour and a half for one. So it's clearly not one of those things where you go, I have an idea, I need something right now. Bam! It's not like the Star Trek replicator where you just show up and go, hey, give me one of those plastic holders. And it's like, boom, there you go. It's like, no. It's more like set it and forget it. It's not there yet. Now, this is the nature of plastic, because it's like, well, plastic has to melt and it has to re-solidify so that you can make a shape. So there's the nature of the material itself, there's a physical limit as to how fast it could possibly go. And we're reaching those limits. I mean, some printers these printers here, now they're a couple of years old. The printers that have come out since them can print the same thing 4 to 10 times faster. I need a new printer, obviously. So they're getting faster, and they'll get as fast as you could possibly go with plastic. And then there's more materials that are coming that are not like that. And there's different kinds of printers that don't have that same limitation. It depends, but it's minutes and hours and days. This robot arm, when I printed it way back in the day, was probably a few days worth of printing for all the parts that I had to do for this. So yeah, you got to be patient.
William, where do you come up with the ideas for your designs? Or where do designs come from?
That's like, Mommy, where did designs come from? Well, so design, well, first of all, they come from your head. It's like they come from, well, what do you want? You have something like this, the towel holder, right? you come from a thought. It's like, oh, I need something that does whatever. There are designs that are free. There's quite a few freely available designs on different websites. The very first one is a place called thingiverse.com. That's a place where I actually did I did an initial set of 150 designs of stuff. So it's out there on thingiverse.com. And yeah, and you can just go there and type in, search for something like toy car, fit cup holder. You just search, just like you would search in a search engine, but instead of documents, you get 3D designs that people have freely made available. I made mine freely available because at that time there weren't a lot of designs available. This is 2011 where I did all my work. And that community was just like, we want everybody to be able to do 3D printing, so here's designs. And people are still doing it today. A lot of people are now doing it because they want to sell you something on Etsy or whatever. It's like, here's my 3D design. If you want one that's already made, here's my Etsy account, you know.
Yes.
So Thingiverse is one. Printables.com is another one. And that one is sponsored by this 3D, which is the company that makes these printers that I use. But it's the same idea. There's freely available designs that people just upload, you know. And again, you can just search. They have a lot of stuff related to their printers, but there's a lot of stuff that's like this thing that I showed you, I got from there. All the pieces, you know, and different models and modifications, and then other people riff on that design and add more accessories and whatnot.
So I was going to ask you that. Can I take a design and modify it?
So we're going to have to do a whole segment on design and how that works. But yeah, that's exactly the idea. Like I showed you the paper towel holders. Like, I like the way that thing clips onto the bar. Right. And I'd like to design one of those to be this connector so I can clip this onto the bar. So there's a way where I can kind of mash things up between different designs and put them together pretty easily and come up with a third design. That's my design, right?
Okay.
So yeah, we'll get all into like, well, what can you do with design? But design starts with your head. You can go to these free websites. Beyond them, you can easily search. There's other sites where there's freelance contractors, people who's like, what do you need design? And you can just explain to them what you want. And then
explain to them, and then they'll do it for you.
They'll whip it up and bam, here you go. Yeah,
those are my people right there. I need to find where they are, because
yeah, and it's usually not super expensive. Like I explained in the very beginning, when I went to do that connector for my straws, you know, it was like $5,000, $10,000, $15,000 just to get an initial prototype.
Right.
Nowadays, it's like, you could hire someone through Upwork or other Fiverr or whatever and get a design for, I don't know, $100. Right. Or if it's custom, you know, if it's something that is already pre-designed, you could get it for like $4, $5. You know, it's like someone selling you a book, right? So design, and this is, and again, it's a great thing about having things be digital. It's like, well, anyone in the world can give you a design. As long as you have email, they can design it and send it to you. Here you go, now give me my money. Yep. So, you know, it opens up the whole, if you need someone in Africa to give you a design on something, you know, you can do it, right? You don't have to go to any design house.
Technology makes the world smaller.
Technology makes the world smaller. It evens the playing field. It allows everyone, gives everyone has equity, right? Gives everyone a chance to jump in on having an equity share in tech. So yeah, that's where designs come from, and that's how easy it is to get something done.
William, I can't wait to see your workshop.
All right, let me show you. So this is the basement of the house, one part of it.
Wow.
And
everything is so organized.
That's recent. It was a total mess not too long ago. So here's this is a rack of just old computers, 2 of the 3D printers that are when we were doing the commercial business.
Okay.
Here's more rack storage of stuff.
And then here's those two 3D printers that we use the most. Back up, following around. What's hiding over here is a laser cutter, which we did not talk about. We'll get to that someday, maybe. Following around from there is some more storage. So various parts bins, plastic parts, mechanical parts, nuts and bolts and all that sort of stuff. And then, of course, this is also the bicycle room, the Peloton with the TV.
Yes.
And that's about it. So
Cool.
this is my man cave, maybe?
Man cave.
This is the man cave. My wife
Yes,
would
this
say,
is
"Well,
it.
you have that, and you have the garage too. That's not fair." So, so this is becoming the craft room.
Yes.
So
Love
I'll
it.
move the bike out, and we'll make more room for even more crafty stuff because the kids want to build robots. So, yeah,
Awesome.
there you go. This is where it all happens.
I can't wait to see more.
Alrighty then.